Well, that was never in doubt, was it? A brilliant performance from England, taking just 70 minutes to answer Ivan Schranz's 25th minute opener, with Harry Kane finishing Slovakia off with a close range header just a little later. I hope those listening will be able to tell the sarcasm in my voice, but I will point it out anyway. It really wasn't very good. On to the Swiss then on Saturday. Will England be able to get into gear then? Or will they, a bit like Switzerland, continue to be stuck in neutral? This is the Green and White podcast brought to you by Argyle Life. Joining me, Stan George, today is Adam. Adam, you're on mute.
God, after everybody else did it last time, I thought, I was so smug about not being on mute. To be honest, I don't have any fun opening remarks anyway, so I may as well have stayed there. But it's, as always, lovely to see you all.
Lovely to see you too, Adam. And also joining me today is Finn. Good evening, Finn.
Good evening. Yeah, I suppose it is a better evening for England winning, but I mean, my evenings might be numbered if I have to watch many more England matches.
Well, we've got 5 more evenings to enjoy, including this one, until we have to go through that charade again. So, got to take the positives where we can. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Later on, we'll be on all your usual podcast platforms. Give us a like, comment, keep your comments coming in. We'll get a bit of a discussion going over what you send in. Also, subscribe to us. YouTube comments are good because you can get a bit of a longer comment in. But we will start with that performance. Jude Bellingham's goal in the 95th minute, the first shot on target, although Declan Rice did hit the post earlier in the game. Against the team ranked in the 40s in the FIFA rankings, was it really an acceptable performance? What do you think went wrong?
Yeah.
Where'd you start?
No, it wasn't. First of all, I think it needs to be stated that as much fun as we've had with the celebrations and the players with their celebrations after the game, the first message really needs to be that is nowhere near good enough. There's got to be some perspective in the sense that winning a Euros knockout game isn't easy. In pre-Southgate, we did it very, very rarely. But
I suppose I suppose apart from 2016 in a tournament with one fewer knockout round.
I mean, it's something. It's something, but that cannot be the main headline because you can't. You just can't get past Slovakia in that way and be satisfied with it. Yeah, I'm happy to dine out and watching that overhead kick again and again, and I'm sure we're going to discuss it in the meantime. But there are no positives aside from the result to take from it. I mean, okay, you'd rather have it this way round. You'd rather play badly and win than well than and lose. Did I get those words in the right order? I hope so. But let's put it this way. In attack, we offered absolutely nothing until, as you mentioned, the first shot on target in the 95th minute of the game. In defence, which had been the one positive, I think, of the group stage, we looked an absolute mess for large periods, and in the end, I had to shuffle it around, an enforced shuffle. I should clarify. To make any change in that, well, there's going to be another enforced change in the next game as well. God knows how that's going to work out for us with Gay suspended now. Going forward, awful. At the back, awful. We're very, very lucky to get the win. Yeah, not good enough. Not good enough. And I say all of this as if I haven't got back and watched the highlights and thoroughly enjoyed it because I just can't stop watching that goal. That doesn't change the fact that if you play like that, you're not going to win any tournaments in a hurry. It's the way it is.
Yeah. To use a bit of a cliche, do you think that goal was quite Roy of the Rovers? Sort of like something out of a film or a comic book or something. Finn, what do you think of the performance? Would you echo what Adam said?
Yeah, well, I just want to read a quote that I saw on Twitter, which I thought kind of summed it up, from a reporter from The Athletic called Grace Robinson. And it basically says, without reading the whole thing out, it got to the point where she didn't actually want England to score because she didn't want to watch any more of that football. And every time we watch England at the moment, it's like a chore, and it doesn't seem to be changing. I think I'm going to have to accept that we might beat Switzerland. Look, I've said all the tournament we got players and things like that, but it just doesn't have any signs of changing. Southgate seems almost stuck to his ways. He's kind of come out and been a bit defiant. I think before the game he said, that a reporter asked how would you like England to play, and he said, I don't care, I just want us to win. And well, we did that, but I mean, we've been saying it every week, and surely it's going to run out at some point. We have to play better. We just have to play better. It's an unbelievable. I've really enjoyed this tournament. But I don't think I'm exaggerating when I pretty much said I've watched most of the games, and I think pretty much every team. I mean, no disrespect to Georgia because they've actually been a breath of fresh air in this tournament, but even Georgia look more coherent in midfield and attack than we do. And we've got all of these players that are meant to be, the best players. Well, they are the best players in the world. Well, we won that game yesterday because they are the best players in the world. Because the best players in the world come up with moments of quality and pull you through games when you don't deserve it. And I said, I think on the last podcast that maybe the players are hoping that we had that yesterday. We might get it in the quarterfinal, and if that happens, then we're 2 games away from winning the cup. And once you're in that position, then anything can happen. But I just don't see us improving, and Switzerland are far, far, far too good for us to play like that and win. We won't get the chance that we did in the 90th minute.
Yeah. I mean, I would just agree with that. I think it's easy to say that only the result matters, but football's sort of about providing moments that kind of give you a bit of joy. I mean, that's why we're there. It's not sort of to just see results on a phone screen or a sheet of paper or whatever. And England just aren't doing that. They aren't giving anyone any pleasure at the moment, and it is a chore just to watch them. And yeah, we'll get on to Switzerland, but certainly they've been one of the more impressive teams in a tournament, I think, where the standard's been high. And we've been one of the least impressive teams. And I think we're certainly the least impressive team to still be in the competition. What do you think the problem is with England? Is it a personnel problem? I mean, we've talked a bit in the past about how Trippier and Foden on the left flank isn't working. There's not enough width on that side. Or is it deeper? Is there a problem with the mentality or the tactics or anything like that? Or is it all of these things together?
All of the above. Yeah. I think the 2 main parts that we've discussed in previous podcasts still applied, because I remember getting to the end of that Slovenia game with 3-0 thinking, okay, we start as favourites, and we didn't know who we were going to play at that stage. It could well have been the Dutch, and I think the Dutch.
Yeah, I think I actually said it was more likely to be the Dutch.
Yeah, and it was at the time. I think it needed Georgia to beat Portugal, didn't it, for us to get to this stage? So, and at that point, even then, we were all saying, the whole country was saying, there's got to be plenty of changes. The personnel has never been right. And it still isn't. And the mentality, I think we touched on it in the last one. I'll touch on it again. Those are the 2 things for me that are seriously holding us back. So let's start with the personnel point as a very obvious one. After that Slovenia game, I think there had to be at least 3, possibly 4 changes made. We made 1, and it showed because the coherence still simply wasn't there. You then look at the mentality of it all. I mean, again, we're in a situation where we've got players coming out after the game going, "Oh, we've had a lot of our critics." Well, we've shut them up, haven't we? No. If anything, the opposite, because you've played worse. I genuinely wonder, do they do the players honestly believe this, or are they trying to protect themselves? Because neither is good. When you're playing like this, you've got to tackle the issue head on and recognise that you can improve. Because let's not forget, we're in an incredible position here. If any of us were offered the chance of saying you beat Switzerland, you make the semi-finals in the Euros before the tournament, everybody would have snapped their hands off for it. So we're in a great place to build upon it. If we can just get that mentality in and recognise that we've not been good enough and things need to change, both in personnel and in the mentality, we've got every chance of going far. But clearly, to me, that mentality and the noises that have been coming out afterwards about, oh, yeah, we played so well, we've got through and we've shut up everybody, it's deluded, quite frankly. And if we carry that delusion into into a game with the Swiss, even the Swiss, you're going to get beat. It's got to change, and I just I feel like a broken record because I said exactly the same things before. It's got to change. The changes weren't made, and we got very, very lucky. Again, much has got to change. Do I think it's going to? No, I don't. But those two for me, to go back to the question, Stan, are the major issues. The personnel hasn't been right all tournament, and the mentality is just. I use the word deluded. I will again. It's not right.
Do you think there's maybe a situation where Southgate might be a bit afraid to drop some of his sort of star names? I mean, I think we saw with Germany that they dropped Florian Wirtz, who was the Bundesliga player of the season, because Julian Nagelsmann didn't think he sort of fit into what he was trying to do tactically. Do you think there's maybe a sense that Southgate is unwilling to challenge his star players like that?
Very possible. Very possible. And to be honest, I think he'll dig himself into an even deeper hole now because he's going to be even more reluctant to drop Bellingham and Kane when they've come up, and particularly Bellingham with the goods in the final minute there. I think there's it's a possibility. Of course, I'm not in the dressing room. I couldn't give a definitive answer, nor could any of us. But I think there's a possibility of that being the case. And it's another thing that absolutely now I don't think is going to change. He's was clearly not going to drop Jude Bellingham at this point, and to be fair, nor should he. But I think there is a reluctance there because I don't think any other manager in the tournament, particularly a manager of one of the favourites, would have witnessed that performance against Slovenia and decided that only one change was necessary. And perhaps that does point to some trepidation from Southgate that he's not strong enough, he's not tough enough. Am I tough enough? No, I mean it's yeah, sorry. He's got to is he yeah, I don't think he's got the ability there to make those decisions, and I don't think that's going to change. And that confuses me a little bit. I don't know if Southgate, in his own mind, recognises that he's leaving after the tournament and has kind of given up a little bit. Because I think back to the last Euros, and okay, he was very rigid in his system, but he wasn't afraid to throw a player in if he thought he was ready. Jadon Sancho wasn't really getting a look in throughout the tournament, and suddenly he's starting the quarterfinal. Southgate's shown that he's willing to do this, and there's clearly something that's changed in this tournament that he's more reluctant. I don't know exactly what it is. I think maybe there's something there in terms of the fact he knows he's going. I don't know, but as with a lot of stuff, it's not right, and it's not conducive to a good performing team.
Yeah, we can only speculate, but 10 of the starting 11 have started in all 4 of England's games, which is a very low rate of sort of turnover with the fact that they've played 4 games in about 2 weeks. Finn, I just sort of want to get your views on the mentality, sort of what Adam said about how England feel like that was a win that answered their critics. Did you feel like that was a win that answered the critics? And do you feel like there's maybe a sort of sense of arrogance amongst the squad?
Do I think it answered the critics? No. The one positive I could give the players maybe was that the mentality of people like Bellingham and the star players that we have, because they're so used to winning stuff, bar the exception of Harry Kane. Maybe they believe that He does. Sorry for the slight jive at Harry Kane. That wasn't really intentional, but anyway, the yeah, the you know they know they have to go to the last minute and they can come up with these bits of quality. But I saw somebody say today that Southgate's biggest strength, and he's probably right, as England manager throughout his tenure, has been not making players feel the pressure of playing for England. And since the game yesterday, I believe Bellingham and maybe somebody else has, and they're right. They're allowed to voice their opinion, but I just don't think it really sits very well with me when they're like, "Oh, it's so tough to play for England because that it's an enjoyable experience, but it's so tough." And it's like, mate, and because the fans' pressure is so high, it's like you play for Real Madrid, who are literally boo the team off when they're not winning 4-0 against the side that's bottom of the table. If they're winning 1-0 at half time against the time that's bottom of the table in La Liga, they'll probably boo them off. Like they are.
Yeah, and certainly if you read the Spanish papers, like I don't think Marca are gentle on Real Madrid. I think that actually the English media are probably less harsh on the national team than they are in France or Spain or Italy and places
like France. Just yes, they were dominant, fairly dominant against Belgium in terms of the ball, but again they flattered to deceive. I'm sure. I know Belgium are a much better side than Slovakia, but I'm sure their press right now is probably saying the same things that we are, if not more, because they're just generally more harsh than our press are. So I don't really have any sympathy when Jude Bellingham is like, I understand why he's saying it. He's entitled to his opinion, but it's like you play for Real Madrid. This is hardly, and you're getting scrutinised because you're playing very, very poorly. And to think that, I just think the pressure has got to not maybe. I basically think Southgate has been very, very good at kind of separating that pressure and keeping a sort of environment over the past few tournaments that has been enjoyable to play in. And now, well, I thought, this tournament he stayed on too long anyway, but I just get that vibe now. And I think, if we do get through to the semi-final, say, there's a very big chance we can win it because there's only 2 games left. But the chances of us actually doing it, I just don't see where a performance comes from. Partly because of Southgate's tactics, and partly because of the players' attitude. Yesterday they were throwing their arms around for just like it feels. Sam did allude to it the other week, but it feels like the old England's. It feels like they don't want to play with each other. Do you know what I mean? Whereas for the past 3 tournaments before this, it seemed like a team that was just good friends. And now there's been a bit of division, maybe with selection and people being brought back into the camp. But that's not really an excuse for how poor we're playing and there's plenty of people, and I'll make no secret of the fact that I'm not generally the biggest fan of Ivan Toney's character, but I do kind of agree with, Southgate alluded to the fact that he was basically disgusted that he brought him on with 1 minute to go, and I was shouting at the TV, it's an insult to your squad, like the fact that we've played this poorly, and you're bringing on players with 2 minutes to go again. It's like, I feel like, it's just insane, really, to me.
We'll talk a little bit more about the substitutions. Just sort of wrap up, I think the point about the mentality is that I sort of agree with you. And I think one of the successes, I think, of England under Southgate has been how players don't really feel burdened by the England shirt. I think that tends to wear very heavy on a lot of England teams of the past. I think in the last 3 tournaments, England have played with a bit more freedom and a bit more positivity. But we've sort of seen at this tournament that they haven't throughout the whole thing. So it took until well into the second half for England to make a substitution yesterday. Certainly Sam Matterface and Lee Dixon on ITV were gobsmacked. I think they took about 3 minutes to discussing as to why Southgate hadn't made a substitution at half time. And it was an enforced one. So Kieran Trippier picked up a knock and it resulted in a tactical change with Cole Palmer coming on and Bukayo Saka moving to left back. Did we think that improved our play with Saka at left back, a naturally left-footed player, as opposed to Trippier?
Good question. It's one of those where I think it could hardly have got any worse. So he is working from base. And did I see much, to be honest, in that period? No. Do I think that Saka's going to start at left back against Switzerland? Probably not. But I want to say obviously something had to be done, but it's not a case of, I recognise something has to be done and I'm going to make this change because of it. It's a recognition of something has to be done because one of my players is injured. I mean, it's not something that would have happened, I think, had Trippier stayed available. So, yeah, to answer your question, probably not. I didn't see huge improvements for sure. Like it wasn't an immediate game changer. And to be fair, it wasn't likely to be. The structural problems are too ingrained that one change, as we know, was never going to be good enough. But yeah, the substitutions for me were so bizarre. It was crying out for a change all game. To leave that, to have 5 substitutes available and into the 94th minute, having made 2 of them when you're 1-0 down to Slovakia. I mean, it's strange beyond the words I can find, to be honest, because I don't think anybody can get it. I don't think anybody will get it. And in a way, I don't know if Southgate himself gets it. Perhaps it goes back to what we were saying a little earlier about that he's scared to make those changes, scared to go against his big name players, and that's why he kept them all out for the majority of the game. But it wasn't a hard decision to see that changes were necessary. You don't have to have followed football to the extent that the three of us like to recognise that performance wasn't working. Let's not forget, for 94 minutes of that game, arguably, we were in a position where we were putting in a performance worse than the Iceland game of 2016, where we were going out to a team we should never have lost to without even having a shot on target. Does that sound like the sort of game where you make 2 substitutions before the 94th minute? It doesn't to me. It probably doesn't to anybody else. And that's, I mean, add it to the list. I mean, there should be a graphic at this point on the screen that Aaron, if he wasn't busy, hard at work, I'm assured, would be able to put on there just as a checklist of things that we recognise are wrong with England, and substitutions and the way that those are activated is very much one of those. It's obviously got to
be bizarre in the aftermath of how he was criticised so much for waiting so long to bring on Anthony Gordon against Slovenia.
Yeah. Is it a case of digging the trench again? Is it a case of him feeling as though he's quote unquote answered his critics by not giving in to the press? Maybe. Perhaps it's a group mentality again that's leading to this, but it was clearly odd. I mean, in an ideal world, I say that it's got to improve. In an ideal world, he makes enough changes to his starting lineup against Switzerland where substitutions become less of an issue. But I feel like that's even less likely. So we've got to play it as we see it, and the way I see it is that it was almost a case of Ian Foster, hands in the pockets, frozen, realizing that he doesn't feel like he has the power to make a change. You do, Gareth. You had 3 left into 94 minutes. Didn't get it. He got away with it. He's unlikely to again.
Finn. So Bukayo Saka coming on at left back, or being relocated to left back, I should say, I guess. Is that something that you'd like to see get a bit more going forward?
I don't think we can afford to do it. If I'm being honest, from now, I said if last pod I said I'm not looking forward to Trippier versus Gakpo because I assumed it was more likely going to be the Netherlands. However, if it was Slovakia, I wouldn't mind playing Saka there just because they would obviously sit back. I think that I forgot who their other winger is, but certainly Ndoye. Is it Ndoye who's on the wing for them?
They've switched it up a little bit, I think. So I think Shaqiri started one game.
Right. Well, we know it. We know the quality he's got. I mean,
Yeah, very good in tournaments as well.
Yeah. So I think I'm sounding a bit Southgate here, but if we've got this far playing this badly, I didn't actually think Saka made a hell of a lot of difference to our attacking threat when he did go to left back, and I think he could be teared. Proverbial new one by Shaqiri potentially.
It's a proverbial new one.
Yeah. So yeah.
I want to see a literal new one.
I know we want to speak about the ref. I think that definitely would be a bookable offence.
But yeah, so I think no, I don't think that. What I do want to say on the subject of left-sided, why is Phil Foden still being played? Like, what has he done? He's had an awful tour. He's in an absolutely awful tournament. I mean, even yesterday, look, it doesn't even need to be offside for the goal. It's just poor.
Yeah, it was quite. It wasn't really playing with his head. I think he should have. I agree with you. He should not have been offside in that situation.
Yeah, so I just think it's just Southgate going, "Oh, I've got these great players. I know what they can do." It's like Anthony Gordon is the only player I've seen at this tournament that actually seems to speak with the right mentality, which is like, we have played shocking. We need to play better. We need to dominate teams with the players that we have. Like, we're not asked. Like, believe it or not, I know England fans are notorious for overhyping and over sort of being overly zealous with the talent that they have. But this team literally, bar the exception of France, and ironically, we are probably two of the poorest teams that have played in the competition so far in terms of the football that we've produced. We're probably the most talented, and I don't, people will continually compare it to the golden generation we had 20 years ago. So I don't know about that, but I mean, who else in the competition other than maybe Mbappe, but I'm not even sure he would do that, to be honest, would score an overhead kick. You know what I mean? Nobody else in the competition has players like that. So I don't think we're asking for very much when we are saying we actually expect to have the majority of the play in these games. And I mean, Slovenia, I mean, you talk about Foden switching off for the goal, defenders switch off for a free kick, and they nearly score from the halfway line, and then it's game over. So it's just all over the team at the moment. It's kind of inexplicable, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's interesting you mentioned that incident with the nearly goal from the halfway line, because I don't know if you sort of felt the same, but I kind of felt that it was indicative of England having sort of mentally checked out. Yeah. Like, it was just so sort of careless.
Oh yeah, I mean, Gahey doesn't look, Walker doesn't look, Stones doesn't look. There's three of them not looking at the same time. That's not, that's not a one-off thing. I think, yeah, like, you're right. That's kind of symptomatic of a team that checked out, and I think they have, to be honest, since they came out before Slovenia, I've had sort of feeling in my mind that they have checked out. Like, in terms of them playing better this tournament, they've kind of checked out, and that they're kind of just going to rely. They're just hoping to rely on them, because it just I know footballers are very media trained, so you're never going to get, bar the exception of Anthony Gordon player saying, "Yeah, we played crap," but I think yeah, just there seems to be, for whatever reason, a reluctance from. It's almost like it's like us against the world. That's what it feels like with the players coming out.
Would you rather and this is sort of a question for both of you. Would you rather England players maybe showed a little bit of honesty and said that the performances haven't been good enough? Or would you think that sort of brings pressure on them, maybe?
Without a doubt, I think because it's an easy win. First of all, you get people in the press on side when you recognise their concerns and recognise that that there has to be an improvement there. I think just coming out after that game, I was hoping to hear something like, "Yeah, we're all delighted we got the win. I'd be delighted you've got the win." But I wanted somebody just to say after the game, we recognise that going into the next game, we have to be better than that. And the fact that they haven't is it means one of two things. It's one, as I say at the start, they're trying to protect themselves, or two, there's a completely delusional mentality there. So yeah, I'd be absolutely 100% more comfortable just with one of them, be it the captain, be it even the Southgate himself, just coming out and saying, "Yeah, that was bad. We recognise that was bad. We're going to try and put it right next time." You get so much more support for that.
Yeah, I mean, he said like at the end of the game, I never thought we were going to lose that game today. And it was like, mate, you were literally 30 seconds and an absolutely unbelievable goal from doing it. And the performance, I mean, that really did, for me anyway, that was 2016 Iceland. We just had the best player in the world. Like our best player at the time was probably a young Marcus Rashford or on his way out Wayne Rooney. We didn't really have the play. We should have beaten Iceland, granted, but do you know what I mean? It was hardly like our team wasn't very good at that tournament. But the only reason we actually got ourselves out of the game is because we got the best goal scorer in Europe and we have the best player in the world probably on form at the moment. So I understand why he wouldn't want to be too negative. Look, we're still in the tournament. We can absolutely go and beat Switzerland, and then we're in the semi-finals. But it doesn't give me any confidence going forward that anything's going to change. And if we do get to the semi-finals, it will be again because of individual quality rather than a cohesive team performance.
We'll just sort of circle back to what you were saying earlier, Finn, about bottom cavities and talk about the referee. Anyone will know that I'm a little bit loath to talk about refereeing performance generally, and I also don't want to step on Joe Bell's toes and make this into a ref watch segment. But a strange refereeing performance yesterday. 5 yellow cards in the first half, 3 for England, 2 for Slovakia. Gehi was booked, which means he'll be suspended for the next match. So that will be one change that Southgate will have to make to his starting lineup. I thought particularly strange as well was the Slovenian player Kuchka, who was booked very early on and then made a series of fouls of about the same severity that weren't punished with yellow cards. What did you make of the referee's performance yesterday? Do you agree that it was a bit bizarre?
Yeah, go on, Adam.
Yeah, I completely agree. It feels as though in every major tournament, there's games where you recognise being refereed superbly, and every now and then something pops up where it feels like the ref has been told the rules about half an hour before kickoff or something. This was one of those occasions.
Yes, I would like to say that I do think generally the standard of refereeing at the tournament has been very high.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's. I mean, you look, for example, a lot of criticism was actually thrown at the English officials in the Germany-Denmark game, which, as much as I can understand, those decisions were correct. They got the right calls and generally managed the situation with the weather and everything generally well. This felt the opposite. It was. I'd be surprised if the ref gets any more games going into the tournament, particularly with those games winding down, and UEFA certainly want to be picking their best options. But yeah, a particular, like I say, with Kuchka, with a few others, I don't necessarily think any of the bookings were the wrong decision on merit. It's just booking them for those challenges and then deciding in the second half, well, actually, I've left my yellow card in the dressing room. I think it's the right word to say that it was just a bit of a bizarre performance at the end, and unfortunately, we've been in situations before where refereeing has cost us, and luckily it wasn't the case there. I mean,
I don't think.
It wouldn't have been the referee's fault regardless. But it's it can happen, and we've known it to happen, and hopefully that's our dodgy refereeing performance out of the way. Because as I say, I'd be surprised if we got another one.
Yeah, Finn, did you think Kuchka should have been sent off for a second?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'll come out. You could say I'm a bit biased, but those fouls are really cynical. Particularly the one on Kobe Mainu on the edge of the box. I mean, that's a yellow card every day of the week. He's gone around about 3 players. He's about to enter the box. He's just slides down. It's a yellow card. It's bizarre. And yes, Gahey, that was a yellow card. I can't remember all of the yellow cards, but all of the yellow cards, I think were yellow cards, like Adam said. But like Adam said, if you set that precedent, you have to follow up on it. You can't just go, oh yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna just hand out yellow cards, whenever I want. You hand out yellow cards because you believe it to be a yellow card, and if the fouls are of similar severity as you're saying, surely it's another yellow. I understand there's that argument of, you don't want to spoil the game and blah blah blah, but that's not the job of a referee. The referee shouldn't care about the integrity of the game when it
I think he kind of made a rub for his own back when he was giving so many yellow cards so early on as well.
Yeah, in terms of what I meant by the integrity of the game, I obviously mean he is the it is his job to keep the integrity of the game, but part of the integrity of the game is to be, as a referee, is to be consistent, and he was not consistent whatsoever. So,
yeah, completely agree. I just want to touch on that point because it's absolutely right in the sense that you hear this argument a lot. There's like, I don't want to send a player off at this point because it would spoil the game and that sort of thing. I'm not necessarily sure it goes to the ref's head, but you hear it in the press a lot, like, it would spoil the game. It doesn't spoil the game as much as letting fouls go unpunished does. So the fact that you're being inconsistent there, and as Finn said, they're booking players for bookable offences and then worse offences not getting punished. Yeah, that's a lot worse for the integrity of the game than it would be sending a player off when he should have rightfully been dismissed.
Yep, but hopefully for the quarters and beyond, we'll get UEFA's best. And as you said,
head loss moment from Granit Xhaka, and he gets a red card. Hopefully, so.
Yeah, I think his days of that are maybe behind him. Certainly based on maybe his last couple of seasons for Arsenal and his season at Leverkusen. But let's talk about Switzerland. One of the surprise packages of the tournament so far. 2 wins and 2 draws, including a draw against Germany. Very comfortably dispatched Italy in the round of 16, 2-0. Just look a really well-rounded, all-round good side. They weren't particularly impressive in qualifying, but it does seem that they've hit their stride at the right time. Another team, a bit like Denmark, who play a back 3 with wing backs. I think Erbischer, who is one of their wing backs, has been a very consistent, very impressive performer throughout this whole tournament. A strong and well-organised midfield with Granit Xhaka, who we mentioned earlier, captained by Leverkusen for their unbeaten in domestic competitions season. Need to remember that because they didn't win the Europa League. And Remo Freuler, who had a good career abroad and was impressive for Atalanta, played very briefly for Nottingham Forest, wasn't very successful there, spent last season on loan at Bologna. Switzerland then, a decent side. The best side that England have played so far, do we think?
They have to be, don't they? I think, put it this way, if you'd have offered me, this is not being cocky, but before the tournament, without knowing how England played, if you offered any of the top sides in the quarter-final that we could face, I think Switzerland would be the one. I mean, Switzerland would be in the top sides that you would probably list, the 5-6 top sides that you'd probably list, but they'd probably be the sort of outsider that you'd be like, okay, we've got a decent chance of getting to the semi-final here. Now, with the games being played that we have, I can see them, to be honest, if we don't change the way that we play, comfortably winning this. Like, pretty, because they look a very well organised unit. And whilst they've got no sort of world beaters, they've got some very talented players. I mentioned Granit Xhaka there. He's a fantastic passer of the ball. Jan Sommer's a very good goalkeeper. Rodriguez has got a good left foot. You mentioned Freuler, and then you've got Embolo up front. He could cause, especially with Gahey being out and it kind of being an unsettled defence, he could cause that defence a lot of problems, I think.
Yeah, very powerful striker, quite dangerous in that regard.
So yeah, I think they are the best side we've played so far, and I think I'm not looking forward to it at all.
I think, is Xhaka the key to that team? Do you think if you shut down Xhaka, you shut down Switzerland, Adam?
It's possible. But I think the way it's been listed off there, I think it's a classic situation of, you can double up on one, but they've still got these players that can hurt you. So it's tricky. I hold the genuine belief that we are not favourites for this game, and I think it's stupid in a way to say, because England team with this talent should always be the favourites going into a game with Switzerland, no matter what's going on. But Switzerland, man for man, are probably the best team we've played so far, and structurally certainly are. So I think playing against a team like that, who are clearly well drilled, clearly know what they're doing, is against a team that clearly doesn't. I mean, it kind of goes into the game they've just had, because a lot of people would look at Italy, Switzerland and go, well, the Italians are going to be the better team, they're going to win there. But I don't necessarily think Italy started favourites for that game either, and so it proved. So I think we're in a very similar situation here. Of course, we can beat Switzerland. Of course, if our best players turn up, we've got every chance. But I think it's much more likely at this point in time that Switzerland, led by Xhaka there, will get the win. And I think Xhaka scares me for a lot of reasons. One, he's big and scary. But two, I think you're looking at a situation. Finn's mentioned that he's a great passer for the ball. Is absolutely right. I think also he's one of the world's best long shooters, and he's going to come against a side who, particularly if they take the lead, are going to sit very, very deep and allow those shots to come in. So even if we do manage to get ourselves ahead in that game, it worries me that we are going to sit back, as we did in extra time yesterday, and we're fortunate in many ways to hold out. It worries me that we do exactly the same thing. So it's double-edged, really, because I don't think shutting Xhaka down is going to be enough, for a couple of reasons. One, because of the talent there, and two, because, to be honest, I don't think we'd be shutting Xhaka down anyway, the way we play. I don't think we're set up to do that at all. And really, I think it's unlikely we take a lead in the game, but even if we do, we're going to see exactly the same pattern. And Switzerland's one of the main sides who, without the top tier teams in this competition, who'll be able to take advantage of that. So it's a double-edged sword, really, and I don't like it.
Yes, and obviously England were burnt from long distance earlier in the tournament. Morten Hjulmand's goal, the only goal that they conceded in the group stage, actually, from a very long way out. And yes, Xhaka does have that reputation for being someone who can do bits, as the kids say, from a long way out. So let's talk about what England should do to counter Switzerland's threat. So we've mentioned before that Gahey is suspended and can't play. So John Stones will need a new partner at the back. Trippier obviously picked up that knock. I've not actually heard about his fitness, but
wasn't there some suggestion that he wasn't that fit coming into the game as well?
There was actually. I think it was an illness that he had coming in. But I'm going to be honest, and I say, even if he was fit, I still wouldn't play him. So we got those two that maybe are forced changes. Are there any other changes that you'd like to see made to the team, or even a more radical change, maybe a change in formation?
I think the best centre back we have in the squad, other than Gahey's shown himself to be very, very good this tournament in general. So I think, but until you look on paper, the best centre back we have in the squad, other than John Stones, is probably Joe Gomez.
Or Esri Konsa?
Yeah, well, I thought he did actually. I was a bit confused, and to be honest, why Joe Gomez, if Kieran Trippier was ill going and didn't play, why there was a suggestion that Konza would have played over Gomez, and then Konza came on at right back. And I actually thought, although he wasn't required to go forward at that point, he did very well at sort of stopping crosses and sticking with his man. And he seems to be the defender that Gareth Southgate will favour. I mean, Lewis Dunk is lucky to be in the squad, putting it like bluntly, and I think he clearly doesn't seem to really trust Gomez that much. To be honest, if the guy's played like 15 games at left back, I know it's not a lot, but it's a fair amount more than anybody else who's played.
Certainly more than Konsa.
Yeah, absolutely. So if he's played 15 games at left back for Liverpool this season and he still doesn't trust him, I think Konza's going to be the one, and I wouldn't be against it either.
So Konza at left back or centre back? Sorry,
the centre back. I just think he's the defender that Gareth Southgate seems to like the most.
And then left back in the absence of Trippier.
Left back in the absence of Trippier. I mean, Luke Shaw had his full kit on, but I still don't think he's going to be. Fit for. So I said I wouldn't play Xhaka. I wouldn't play Saka, but I genuinely, if who is there to play? I've kind of lost track. Really, who would you play at left back? Because I agree, Kieran Trippier really hasn't been that good. I mean, defensively, he hasn't been awful, but he's just given us nothing going forward. So
I probably personally would play Saka there. I know it's not a perfect solution, but I don't think there are any perfect solutions in this squad.
At least
and he'll offer width and a bit of attacking verve on that side.
At least that means you can play cold then, and I know, good old cold Palmer. No, but I think genuinely he made a difference. He just seems to play. We talked about how maybe some of the England players are playing with a bit of trepidation, and he just seems to not care. He kind of steps on the pitch and is just like, I'm just going to do my thing. And I think maybe he takes it too far sometimes in the fact that he probably should have gone to the corner. I mean, it didn't mean anything in the end, but it allowed Slovakia to get another cross into the box. But, he could pick up the ball and he's already looking for somebody. I just want a bit of that positivity in watching this football team, because that's what we've all been promised with these players coming into the tournament. Well, not promised by Southgate, but sort of like with what we've watched by the players. And we just haven't had any of it. So I would, I'll settle with Saka and left back and Palmer, then out wide.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. Put Cole Palmer in the team and have Saka at left back.
Just very quickly, though, it does say a lot about the selection and about how this tournament has gone, that we're saying play Bukayo Saka at left back. Like, it's hardly like a thing that I'm looking forward to, but it's certainly a solution, maybe.
But there were no left backs in the country. Apparently, Tyreek Mitchell and Leif Davis and all of these left backs who could have been picked, Ben Chilwell, didn't exist, according to Gareth Southgate. So here's the situation, and here's where we are. Adam, what do you think of the team? What would you do? Would you agree with Saka at left back, Konza in for Mark Gahey?
I think, to be honest, I first of all, let me be clear, I don't think it's going to happen, but I've been won over by the idea of changing shape and matching them up with the three at the back. I think if you're going to play or be forced to play Saka on the left, and putting him as a wing back rather than a full back gives him a little bit more protection there and gives him a bit more of a license to get forward. And I think that's possibly an ideal solution. It then gives us the opportunity, I think, to bring Trent Alexander-Arnold in a wing-back position, which again I think would suit him down to the ground. Particularly if we go for the 2018 style of having Walker in behind him. I tend to agree that the treatment of Joe Gomez has been a bit weird, because let's not forget, he was in the England team many years ago and fell out of favour and has come back in because of his form for Liverpool. And much of that form has come at left back. So to then prefer Cons at left back, having seen enough of Gomez to say you want him in the squad, is a little bit odd. As at this point, by the way, is not having Jared Branthwaite around as a left footer, who I think may have been the ideal choice. But hey, it's one of many, many odd choices. So yeah, for me, I think there's probably ways you could do it. I think having the three at the back of some capacity is what I'd go for. It's not without precedent. And last year, as much as I was saying about Sancho earlier, we saw changes of shape. For example, between the Czech game, the German game, and the Ukrainian game, where we did play three at the back, I believe, in the middle of those. So it's something that Southgate has done before, and I think this one would be a good time to do it. Match them up and try and nullify some of their threats, but also get some of our players in and negate some of their weaknesses whilst exacerbating their strengths as well. I think. Sorry, go on.
I also thought Walker was terrible yesterday at right back.
Without a doubt, yeah. For a while there, it was on a genuine 1 out of 10. I think. There's he'll love the fact he's getting a shout out here. I've got a friend called Kyle Walker who has hated football from birth, and I genuinely think if he was on the pitch yesterday, he would have been a lot better. But yeah. So I don't know. Perhaps that'll help as well. To be honest, even if it was a case of dropping Walker for Trent at the right back position at this point, I wouldn't be against it because he was so bad. But that's what I'd do. I've not thought ahead enough to know what that means for the likes of getting Palmer, Bellingham in. I mean, I'm an Anthony Gordon fanboy apparently. I'm getting him into the side as well. But I think we're working with the basis of the back three is what I'd do, as much as I can't see it happening in reality.
No, I can definitely see where you're coming from, but I also agree that it's difficult to see it changing. It's interesting that you mentioned Jared Branthwaite because I was reading. I think it was Gahey who said that he was surprised at how vocal Jordan Pickford is behind him. I mean, we know that Pickford's quite a exuberant goalkeeper, shall we say? Maybe.
Yeah, I've not got the word out right, but eccentricity 20, I think.
Yeah, the old Football Manager attribute, indeed. But maybe we could have someone there who's not only a left footer, but also used to Jordan Pickford giving him a bit of a bollocking at Everton. So maybe that could be another reason as to why it might have been a good option to prefer Branthwaite ahead of, for example, Lewis Dunk. Shall we do our predictions then before wrapping this up? I'm going to go last so I can not say the same as anyone else. Let's go, Adam. What do you think's going to happen on Saturday in Dusseldorf?
Right now, I can see a very, very similar game panning out to what we saw with Switzerland and Italy. And to be honest, I think the same scoreline is quite likely. An Italian head loss went into that, and if we go 1-0 down, particularly with what we saw in that free kick yesterday, I can see a similar head loss happening. So, yeah, long and short of it, God, I hope I'm wrong, but I can see 2-0 Switzerland.
Finn?
Yeah, also the same. I just can't see any of it changing. I think over the past few years, we've probably got a bit, because Southgate isn't a particularly polarizing character. He likes to try and stay on the right side of the line. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, he's never been known to be rude to reporters.
I thought for a minute you meant polarizing, as in, he sort of hasn't polarized the fans. But I understand what you mean. Kind of, he's not a abrasive character in any way.
Yeah. So I think because of that, maybe that we have maybe that we thought, he's like Mr. Nice Guy, but he's actually very, very stubborn in his sort of selection choices and his particularly this tournament. So I think, I don't really see much changing, and maybe they're just in this kind of siege mentality, and they're just looking to to protect themselves by saying, "Look, it's a tournament. We're getting through the tournament, and that's all that matters." But it does, that's all we get to see as fans. So it doesn't give you any confidence that much is gonna sort of change. So I think it's really important that Declan Rice has a better game than he has basically throughout the tournament if we want to keep Xhaka quiet.
He's been quite poor with the ball as well, Rice, for my money.
Really, really heavy touches every time he gets the ball, and it just forces us back. To be fair, there was a point where I seemed to notice him on his haunches at one point yesterday. So yeah, unfortunately, same 2-0. And will I be disappointed? Yes, but will I also kind of be relieved that this kind of experiment has not been prolonged any further? Probably, yeah. Also,
yeah, I think it was certainly.
I don't mean the podcast, by the way. I definitely mean Gareth.
It's all right. Once we go out, we'll be back, and we can all have a massive rant again. Yeah. We might even get Sam on to do one of his famous rants. Yeah. It's interesting to see that Nick on Facebook, as you can see down there, agrees with you, Adam. Like to see a 3-5-1-1, which I guess would be Bellingham sort of in behind Harry Kane. I wish I could be the voice of optimism and disagree with you both, but I also think we're going to lose. I just think there's just nothing from the rest of the tournament that I've seen that could think we are actually going to play well enough to beat a team who don't have star quality, but maybe apart from Xhaka, but are strong, well organised, good both defensively and going forward. So I'm going to have to agree with you, and I'm going to have to say that I also think we're going to lose 2-0.
I think if it's a voice of optimism we're after, I mean, look, I don't think this is the most likely outcome by any stretch of the imagination, but let's just consider, if we want to go out on an optimistic note, that there's a certain name on the trophy element to this. We have been pretty abysmal, getting worse and worse as we've gone throughout the tournament. And we're still here. We're still here because of a 95th minute bicycle kick that's got us through. And we find ourselves in objectively the easiest part of the draw. Now, I've mentioned, and I've spent most of the last hour moaning, not without good reason, I should stress. But if there's one thing we can take from this, is that this is a moment, and we've said before, football's a moment's game. That scoring a bicycle kick in the last minute is, as you say, it's Roar of the Rovers stuff, comic strip stuff. It's the first thing that I thought of when analysing it back. As a group, you have got to galvanise yourselves around that. You've got to use that as a springboard. How often have we seen it that one moment can turn something around? Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to lose. But if you can't galvanise yourselves through a bicycle kick in a moment like that, then frankly, what can you use? So it's possible. It's just possible that we'll be looking back on it in a few months' time and recognising that was the moment our tournament turned around. And again, as much as I don't expect it to be the case, I bloody hope it's the case, because we've been crying out for a moment like that for a long time. We've got it. Let's galvanise ourselves around it.
Adam, thank you very much for that lovely note of optimism on which to end. So we'll be back on Sunday, same time, 6:45, all the same places, to discuss the aftermath of the Switzerland game. As I said, might be a celebratory mood, or might be us 3 or 4 having a rant again about how terrible we've been. But I hope you can all join us. And in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me. It's a goodbye from Adam.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from Finn.
Bye.
Thank you. And we will see you on Sunday.